All right, today we're going to look at the 5 different types of theatrical space. They are the proscenium theater, the arena theater, the thrust theater, and then we will talk about 2 other kinds of spaces created found spaces and the flexible black box theater. The proscenium stage gets its name from the arch that separates the playing space from the audience space. As you'll see in a proscenium theater, all of the seats face the same way. It is very similar to what you see in most high school auditoriums, certainly movie theaters. It is the most recognizable type of theatrical space. Most theaters in New York City in the Broadway Theater District are proscenium theaters. The auditorium where the audience is seated is raked or on a slant, which allows everyone to see clearly whether you're in row A or row R or row QQ. Please keep in mind with this diagram here that many proscenium auditoriums usually include a balcony or 2. One of the things you will notice is the stage area. The right wing and left wing are opposite of your right and left from where you are looking in the theater. This is because all markings on the proscenium stage are from the perspective of the performer, not the audience member. The arena stage is also called theater in the round. It is the most intimate type of theater. The playing space is in the center of the room with the audience surrounding the stage on all 4 sides, much like a wrestling match. Either the stage is raised so that everyone can see the action like in a wrestling match, or the audience is raised above the floor looking down, as you see in this picture here. The arena stage is intimate. It really allows the audience to form a literal circle around the performers. The audiences are very much aware that they are being watched while they are watching. This type of theater is also the most economical because elaborate scenery is not only impractical, it is unnecessary because all sides of the audience must be able to see the performance. So instead of walls and doorways, we tend to use low-profile furniture and rugs and maybe flying a piece or 2 in from the fly loft above. The most widely used space in theater is the thrust stage. The audience sits on 3 sides or in a semicircle surrounding the stage, which projects into the middle of the audience. Because the play space thrusts out into the audience, a sense of intimacy is created. However, the back wall does allow for some elaborate scenery. It was developed by the Greeks. It was used in the medieval times during the Spanish Golden Age. The Romans used it, the Elizabethans used it, the Chinese used it, etc. It is the most widely used throughout history. The thrust space makes things seem quite intimate because the actors really are within an arm's reach of the audience. You can see here in the diagram of the audience a little more clearly how the thrust theater is a true hybrid mix of the arena stage and the proscenium stage. Here is an original Greek amphitheater created on the hillside in Greece. This theater, of course, would have used only the sun for lighting instruments and was attended largely by men and was tied to religious festivals. Another example of a thrust stage is the Elizabethan Playhouse, as you see here. you will read more about that in your book as well. It's interesting to note the color of the flag on top of the theater would change based on the type of show that was to be performed, whether that be a history, as you see here with a yellow flag, or a tragedy with a black flag, or a comedy, etc. So you could look out the window and see what was going on at the Playhouse that night. A black box theater is also called a studio theater. It's where our class meets when we do meet. It is a flexible space that allows us to adapt to almost any type of configuration. The seats are flexible, the lighting is flexible, as are platforms, level, everything can be moved around in the space. Because of this, there is a sense of intimacy in those spaces. Now, when we talk about created and found spaces, we're talking about looking at the physical arrangement of a playing area and its relationship to the audience. This is theater that maybe isn't supposed to happen in theaters, maybe theater that should take place in a warehouse, or theater that would be interesting if performed in front of Union Station, for example. The key players in this were the Polish man Jerzy Grotowski and the Frenchman Antonin Artaud. And these men really were interested in taking theater out of theatrical spaces, which typically were only patronized by the rich, and putting it anywhere, in airplane hangars, in barns, in warehouse spaces, anywhere unusual. Lofts, warehouses, fire stations, basements, churches, breweries, coffee shops, gymnasiums, etc. The idea is to use unusual structures as they are, with their original architectural elements intact. For example, Barbara Carlyle, a friend of mine in grad school, wrote the Coffee Shop and Laundromat plays, in which Act 1 of this cycle of plays took place in a coffee shop, and it was two baristas. And so the performers worked in the coffee shop behind the counter, making espresso drinks for customers as they came in, while the audience, who had bought tickets and were seated in the seats of the coffee shop, watched a dialogue transpire between them without interrupting the business of the coffee shop. Act 2 took place in a laundromat just a few doors down in the strip mall, where performers sat in the laundromat and watched these two baristas wash, dry, and fold a load of laundry while the laundromat was open. Again, it was really an interesting piece that challenged the notions of theatrical space. The Greatest Loves in Portland was a piece done by the Sojourn Theater, where they advertised in the back of Westward magazine for, or the equivalent of the Westward magazine in Portland, for weeks, for people to write in and tell them their love stories, how they met their love, their greatest love. And they took the stories and workshopped them and created the 7 best pieces from that kind of net of stories, and performed them for the city of Portland as a Valentine for free in a building that was being constructed. The final facade, the final wall had not gone up. So with the use of some industrial lighting, you could have these scenes appear in different parts of the building while the audience watched from the street. When we talk about challenging notions of theatrical space, we can also talk about these last 2 events here. The Republic and Shakespeare were 2 events that I saw earlier this summer at the Orlando Fringe Festival. The Republic was a warehouse space that was converted into a kind of a live action choose your own adventure haunted house with a storyline. And the 6 storylines did kind of interact together and become one, but each storyline was in and of itself telling this story of a takeover where audience members were first brought into a room where they had to find envelopes matching a symbol they were given without speaking to anyone, by looking in nooks and crannies, and then being introduced into this world and learning about where loyalties lie. And then there were events like Shakespeare, where the local Shakespeare company, the Orlando Shakespeare Theater Company, performed a 45-minute drinking game version of Romeo and Juliet in the pub, where audience members drank anytime someone said hand, or beloved, or beloved, or said a name, or something like that, during a 45-minute quick-paced retelling of Romeo and Juliet. Finally, there are 3 links here you can check and click. Here is one.
When cigarette cravings hit, all I can think about is getting relief.
Only Nicorette. All right, thanks for coming out, everybody. Really excited that all you guys are here. We've got a really exciting mission that we're going to be doing today. We're going to be freezing in place on cue at the exact second. We're going to hold that for 5 minutes, and then we're going to unfreeze, and we're out.
They stopped what they were doing and just stood like frozen.
How long has this been happening?
I don't know.
I just walked in. Has it been going on for a while?
No, it just was.
so.
This guy just dropped the papers a couple minutes ago.
It's like everybody.
Yeah.
Came with my car. There's hundreds of people frozen everywhere. This is wild. This is so weird.
What's going on?
I don't either. I think it's some kind of protest problem. It's either that or an acting class.
No, they are not moving. I can't move my car. I need some help. Never mind. They're moving.
That is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I thought it was only me who was seeing it for a little while.
So here's yet another example of a flash mob, or a opportunity to perform kind of in a created or found space, a space that was not meant for theater.
Start at the very beginning. Very good place to start. When you read
there you have it. This last one you can watch on your own by clicking on the link, the Food Court Impromptu Musical.